Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. If you are looking for a podcast about instructional strategies enhanced by technology, you came to the right place. In our conversations, we will talk with tech experts, share ideas and strategies to help you build your toolbox with tools that you can use in your class immediately.
Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. Today we are talking end-of-year computer organization, tips and tricks for your end-of-the-year organization. As the school year is coming to an end, we wanted to share some tips and tricks to clean up your files in this episode. We will share some tips and tricks to help organize your computer files and your Google Drive. But before we get started, let's pause for this week's tech tip.
Today's tech tip is about Google Shared Drives. These are drives that are owned by Berkeley County School District, which makes it easier to share content within the school district, within a team, within a school, however you want to share content and not have to worry about personal ownership of any of the content. So what I would do here is first, you can create a shared drive here if you want, just like you would a regular Google Drive folder. And by clicking on the three dots to the right of the title, and I'm going to click Manage Members. I can see that I am the manager, but if I wanted to make somebody else the manager, I could just click on the drop down and I can choose another person to be the manager. To the right of their name, there's a drop down where you can choose for them to be a viewer, a commenter, a contributor, a content manager, or the manager. And you can also remove access. So if you have somebody in your school that goes to another school or retires, you can click remove access so that way they don't see that shared drive anymore. If you want them to be the one to control who is in the shared drive, then that would be the manager. The manager can manage content, people, and settings. Content manager might be people within your team that can add, edit, move, delete, and share content. A contributor can just add and edit files. A commenter is just that. They can only comment. And then there's an option to just be a viewer. So shared drives are really nice to be able to share content within Berkeley County School District without worrying about who owns the content. Shared drives can also be a way to take resources that are in your regular Google Drive and share it with your team and automatically change ownership to Berkeley County School District and give them editing rights to your files. This is a lot faster than having to share individual items with multiple people. So check out the shared drives.
All right. I hope everybody enjoyed that tech tip. And so today I am Jimmy Kate. I'm joined by
Pam Hubler
and our Google guru. So we are good to go with that. But before we get into the Google stuff, let's talk about what can teachers do to kind of think about computer cleanup as the year's coming to an end.
Mm-hmm. I know the first thing is to look at that computer desktop.
Yep.
I am not a desktop person. That I
Either
save
am
a ton
I.
of things.
Nope.
But I do know some people love covering up their desktop because it's easy to get to.
Sure.
So one of the tips I used to share with some of my coworkers when it drove me nuts when I walked in and I saw it like that was to create a folder on your desktop so that way you can drag all the files into it that you want to keep. Because then there are a lot of other places that you can save them so you can get to it. Because if we update over the summer,
right,
all those things go away.
Sure. And sometimes we do computer switch outs, right?
Yes.
So they could be getting new computers. So it's important to make sure that you get things out of your computer that you want to save for next year and move them to, a safe place. So, what are some places they can move some of those files to?
Well, a lot of times, when you download things on your computer, it will go to downloads in general, unless you choose to save it to your desktop. So the downloads are fine, but we do want to clean it up every once in a while because it can get a little out of control.
I would definitely recommend people check that download file, make sure that there's things in there that you have saved somewhere else that you were able to download. But if there's something that you've downloaded that you need to save, let's go ahead and make sure we also clean that up as well. Check that download folder.
Yes, and the H Drive, of course, that's another place. And really, anytime you're on campus or in Berkeley County School Districts and you log in on a computer, you can access your H Drive. But that also, depending on how long you're in the district, you might end up with a lot of stuff in there.
Sure.
So you want to clean that up every once in a while as well.
because you can create same kind of folders and
Mhm.
different elements in there. And then I would recommend definitely having an external flash drive, thumb drive, something like that, is another good place. You can never have your files, I think, backed up, and you need to have as many backups as possible just
Right.
in case that something happens. But definitely getting things out of your desktop, getting them from your download file, moving them to your H drive, moving them onto an external drive, or to a Google Drive as well. So
Yeah, and the external hard drives, I know some people like to use those, which is fine. You just have to be careful with those because
Yep.
sometimes they do have moving parts, and if you drop them,
Yep.
then they will stop working, and then you don't have access
Sure.
to your files.
Yep.
So if you are going to use an external hard drive, don't only save it there.
No, definitely have multiple places. That's what we're definitely. The H drive is good. But I think Google Drive is also the other really safe place to make sure that we're saving things, because that we know that we can, number one, access that in many different ways, but we all know that it's going to be pretty safe as well. So
Yes, and the Google Drive is where I put everything.
Yep.
And I think for a long time, especially if you use a Chromebook for a lot of, for a long time, they automatically go to your drive. So it's really easy to access your materials.
sure. So while we're talking Google Drive, how about some Google Drive cleanup as well? What's some ways that they can make sure that Google Drive is cleaned up and ready for next school year?
Folders, I think, are the easiest place to start, because then you can consolidate your items. I have a school year one. Like this year, I have an ILC 22, 23.
Yep.
And then you can do school year, you can do by subject. So if you have all of your stuff for math, you could even do math 2023.
Yep.
So if okay, I know I did it last year, and this is what folder it's in.
Sure.
Subject, units. Sometimes it's, let's say, if you're a science teacher and you have certain units, then maybe it's by unit. So there's lots of ways to organize it.
Yeah, I think it's also
folders.
important for them to go through their Google Drive, look for free floating, things that are saved, look for assignments and things that they've copied to their kids or whatever that they want to make sure that they have, and that they're put into the right folder. They're named the way that they want to name them, so that they can easily find them again for next year. Sometimes you get in a rush and you just, it's untitled. Maybe you forgot to name it, or it's named like the date, something like that. So, to go through the files, look for the ones that are free floating, put them into the correct folder, and then also giving them a name that they can easily find and search for.
Right. You're really good at that, because don't you put everything is in a folder?
Most everything's in a folder, but I think naming is where because I spend, when I'm looking for something, I'm always going to use the search feature. Yes. That's usually what I do. So I'm really careful about how I name things, so that I know that I can immediately go to just type in my search in my drive and be able to find it. And so,
right. Yeah, and I have seen some people add like a hashtag at the end of their titles, just so that way if they did search that hashtag, everything pops up that has to do with that.
That's a good idea.
A unit. There's lots of ways, whatever you add in the title, because the sorting and the searching,
right.
The longer you use Google Drive, I think the harder it is to just scroll down to it. You have to use the search feature.
Yep, the search feature is nice, and people don't know that in that search window to the right, there's a filtering option where you can look for if it was created by somebody else, you want to go find it, or if it's a certain type of document, you want to go find this Google form that you used. You can search by those parameters, and so we have a screenshot in the show notes. So check out the show notes and see that filtering feature inside of that. And then again, like I said, the Google Drive search is probably the best and the easiest way to find things. Definitely keep things organized in a folder, but make sure that naming is what you wanted to remember, so that's easy for you to remember exactly what it is, so that you can go find it pretty quickly. So
yeah, and it's really easy to rename your documents when you are cleaning things up. You don't have to open it even. You can just right click on it, and there's an option to rename. So then it's easier to do it without opening every single item in a folder.
Yeah. And then some fun ways to organize their drive are through colors and emojis. Talk about how they can make their Google Drive kind of spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, and we've talked about this many times before, but I feel like it's always a good one.
Sure.
If you have, I have certain ones that I always color red, just so I know that that's like either an important one, or those are the ones that I don't want to share with anyone. They're just like my private files,
right?
Where I want to make sure I keep those clean. I keep those templates. Nobody can mess with those. So I might color those red. Yeah. So that way I know, don't share this folder.
That's good.
And then emojis. I always use, I think it's Emojipedia. Is that the one I have? I'll add it to the show notes. But when I add an emoji in the beginning, emoji copy, that's it. When I add it in the beginning of a title, then it will stay at the top.
Right.
So then it's a little easier to see your folder, and even if it's not in alphabetical order.
Perfect. And then with that Google Drive, also, so we got some teachers that are that use a lot of shared drives, and you gave a really great shared drive tech tip at the beginning. Hopefully that was helpful. But what are some other ways that those shared drives can help them kind of organize their Google Drive?
Yeah, I think moving files to shared drive, that just makes it a little bit easier. If you do know, let's say you're going to another school,
right,
or maybe you're moving and you'll be out of the district, and you don't need those files anymore, but your teammate relies on those, that shared drive is super important. So, and you can drag an entire folder or multiple folders to a shared drive, and then it's owned by Berkeley County, and you don't have to worry about who the owner is.
right.
And you can change managers and things like that when you're in Google Drive. So that way, so you go in Drive, there's the shared drives on the left. You'll only see the ones either you've created or somebody has you in. And if you are the manager, you can just click on the three dots to the right of the shared drive and manage members. If you aren't the manager, you will probably only see view members. So that's an easy way to be able to tell if you are the manager, because it's one way you want to be able to adjust them.
Sure. And we definitely recommend checking out the show notes. We have a link to our Tech Tips YouTube channel playlist now that you can go see that video of how to go through that shared drive. So that's a good place to check that out. You also can join the podcast PD as well to get that renewal credit for every 2 that you're listening to. So make sure you check out the show notes. And then last but not least, kind of for teachers that may be leaving the district, unfortunately, what are some things they can do with that Google Drive to help make sure that some of their work comes with them?
Yeah, that's we don't love it when people retire, but they do.
Yep.
So Google Takeout just allows users to be able to export all their data, and they can download it as like an archive file, or you can also add it to your personal Google account, so you can have access to it. Now the shared drives, it doesn't pull from there.
Right. It's just going to be in there.
Own it.
Correct.
Yeah, but it would just be from your drive.
Correct. And definitely would do some cleanup before you do your Google Takeout, so that you don't have this mass of stuff that is hard to get through. So I would definitely recommend listening to some of those other ones. And we did have a whole podcast on organizing your Google Drive. I will link that episode in the show notes as well, so that if you wanted to go into a deeper dive into your Google Drive organization, make sure you check out that earlier episode as well. So really appreciate you being here, sharing your Google expertise and cleaning up their computers. And I hope everybody will, be able to clean up their computers, be ready to go for next year. And that'll kind of take one less thing off of their plate for the summer. So
That'll make it a lot easier too when you're using Schoology, because then when those titles, you'll be able to find them easily.
Yep.
So since you use it in both places.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.